If you've been following along on our daily devotions, you know that we've come through a period where the Israelites were divided into two kingdoms, a northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. And in 2 Kings chapter 17, we actually get a very clear description of the end of Israel and why this catastrophe came upon them. And I'd actually like to read chapter 17, verses 7 through 18, because it's a summary of perhaps the most important words in the books of 1st and 2nd Kings. This occurred, that is, the Israelites being conquered by the Assyrians. This occurred because the people of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, who had brought them up out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. They had worshipped other gods and had walked in the customs of the nations whom the Lord drove out before the people of Israel, and in the customs that the kings of Israel had introduced. The people of Israel secretly did things that were not right against the Lord their God. They built for themselves high places at all their towns, from watchtower to fortified city. They set up for themselves pillars and sacred poles on every high hill and under every green tree. There they made offerings on all the high places, as the nations did, whom the Lord carried away before them. They did wicked things, provoking the Lord to anger. They served idols, of which the Lord had said to them, "You shall not do this." Yet the Lord warned Israel and Judah by every prophet and every seer, saying, "Turn from your evil ways and keep my commandments and my statutes in accordance with all the law that I commanded your ancestors and that I sent to you by my servants, the prophets." They would not listen, but were stubborn, as their ancestors had been, who did not believe in the Lord their God. They despised his statutes and his covenant that he made with their ancestors, and the warnings that he gave them. They went after false idols and became false. They followed the nations that were around them, concerning whom the Lord had commanded them that they should not do as they did. They rejected all the commandments of the Lord their God and made for themselves cast images of 2 calves. They made a sacred pole. They worshipped the host of heaven and served Baal. They made their sons and daughters pass through fire. That's talking about child sacrifice. They used divination and augury, and they sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord, provoking him to anger. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel and removed them out of his sight. None was left but the tribe of Judah alone. Well, it takes a while to read those verses, but that's a summary of basically why Israel came to its end and was destroyed and conquered. They basically didn't follow the 10 Commandments. They didn't worship God first and foremost. They committed idolatry. They didn't listen to the words of the prophets. And this passage is really a pretty stark warning that as the people of God, we need to do what God commands us to do, because when we don't, the consequences can be pretty severe. Let us be faithful, and may all who come behind us find us faithful in our worship and our serving the Lord.